Hi there everyone, this is Adrien, the exercise specialist at the Leduc Beaumont Devon Primary Care Network. Hope you all are doing well today. For today's video, I thought I would show you guys a few different ways that you can actually stretch out your hamstring muscles and then finish off with actually my favorite hamstring stretch that I feel is a little more effective than most. Not necessarily all, but there's some biomechanics specific things, but a lot of people, claim to have, tight hamstrings. And a lot of people are told that they have tight hamstrings. Sometimes people do actually have tight hamstrings. There is occasions where it's actually an increased tonicity to the muscle, so muscle is actually partially contracted without you realizing it from a neurological standpoint. That's a whole nother thing. So this is specifically for people with actual tight hamstrings. So what do your hamstrings actually do? Your hamstrings attach at the top of your calf muscle here, and then they actually go up, and some of them actually attach in the bottom part of your pelvis here on the back. So the two movements that the hamstrings help with is what's called knee flexion, which is this movement. So going from straight to up, your hamstrings do that, and they also help. This will help with what's called hip extension, which is this movement. So if you take your leg and you go outward, so this way, so extending your hip, so hip extension. So they do this movement as well as this movement. A lot of people that claim to have tight low backs or painful low backs and things like that, sometimes it can be at least one symptoms can be related to tight hamstrings or even weak hamstrings, so on and so forth. Because if you have, let's say, a tight hamstring, it pulls on your pelvis, tilts your pelvis wrong way, and then it creates pressure through your glutes and your low back. Other muscles in those areas start to have to overwork or underwork, and just causes a big ripple effect throughout the body, as that's how the body tends to work. The body tends to work in muscles that are individualized, but then they work in greater systems. So there's a good book called The Body. It's called Body Trains. It's a great book showing how the systemic muscles work throughout the body. If anyone wants to learn more about that, awesome book. We'll show a few different forms of hamstring stretches. A lot of them people tend to do or see already, and then maybe one or two that people don't often see. I'm someone that falls in the camp where I don't have tight hamstrings, but I do have increased tone in the hamstrings. So I do need to work on that. It's really hamstrings are a very important and undervalued muscle group for the body. There's a ton of great studies linking athletic injury to weak hamstrings, and that people with strong hamstrings are less likely to get injured, and so on and so forth. There's actually a ratio between hamstring to quad strength for athletes for optimal knee health and all those kinds of things. Hamstrings very underutilized muscle group back there, and they're very important. As per usual, if you're new to physical activity, if you're returning to physical activity from a layoff, or if you have a medical condition that might make doing physical activity difficult, please consult with your physician before beginning any new exercise program. Thank you. So these exercises aren't going to be used to treat or to diagnose anyone's specific injury, and you shouldn't be using them as such. They're simply for educational purposes. Feel free to give them a try, and if you enjoy them, try implementing them into your routine. Also, to just give a quick breakdown, there's lots of different types of stretching. There's static stretching, where you're holding up position for a long hold, where you're not moving or stretched. There's more active type of stretching, where you're doing some movements, you're holding things for shorter periods of time, as Coach Luna comes to say hello. There's more dynamic stretching, where you're moving a little more dynamically, and then there's things that are called ballistic stretching, which is very intensive kind of stretch movements, like intense leg swings, so on and so forth. And each have their place. In my personal opinion, I think that static stretching is a little bit overused and should generally be kept to people post-exercise for the most part. They can be done pre-exercise or on their own too. I don't think it'll have too negative of an effect. There's some research that shows that there could be some small effects, but I'm more into the generally kind of slower, active, more dynamic stretching for most people in most situations pre-exercise and post-exercise. If I personally had to choose one type of stretching for people in general, it's the more active, dynamic type of stretching, if you're able to do so. So for those, it's things like holding a stretch for 5 to 15 seconds, maybe 20 seconds holding it, releasing it for a few seconds, going back into it for another 5 to 20 seconds or so and releasing it, and doing some reps kind of like that. So that's the rep range I will show for these exercises today. So for today, the pieces of equipment that I will be using is this. So it's just it's a yoga strap or a stretching strap, however you want to call it. I have cut this one shorter to fit me better. It was about twice as long before. This fits me, you know, for my metrics. So you can use this when you're not quite flexible enough to, you know, reach your toes or reach the positions that you are looking for, or, you know, if you are tall, you know, someone like myself who's, you know, a few inches over 6 foot, it makes things kind of difficult at times. The other piece of equipment that I'll be using today is this little box, or this stool, to just do a couple of the end stretches that I personally prefer. So if you want to start, and actually we will do one other kind of stretching too. I'll step off camera for a second and grab a weight. Grab a weight from the old gym there. So we'll be doing one more intensive stretch with this plate here afterwards also. So just to begin, everyone knows kind of your standard type of a stretch. Your feet are together and you lean down and you try and you touch your toes, right? So here we go straight down, we try and we touch our toes. So if we see here, you know, I'm really rounded over in the back, not necessarily the best position that we want to be, but if you're just here hanging for a little bit, it's okay. You see, if I bend my legs a little bit, just a little bit, it actually loosens up my hamstrings further and gives them more range. So if I go from full straight legs, about, you know, 5-6 inches from my toes, if I go bending a little bit, I gain about an extra 8 to 10 inches in range of motion there. And this, I don't feel any stretch on my hamstrings whatsoever. Bend my legs a bit to help actually engage them slightly, and I get much more hamstring stretch. So I find this to be a much healthier way to do it. So instead of being dead straight leg, just bend your legs slightly, just, you know, just slight bend in them, and then you just go down and then you just hang. See, so here I can now get almost all my, I can get all my knuckles on the ground if I really push it, right? If I straighten up my legs, I'm nowhere close, and I feel this more in the back of my knee. We don't really want to be feeling the stretch for these exercises in the very back of your knee. If you're doing that, you're often stretching either the distal attachment of the hamstring, so where the hamstring attaches into the bone, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's not the point of this. But you could also be stretching out some of the nerves in the back there, as well as some of the other fibrous tissue. Things like your popliteal fossa and things like that we don't necessarily want to focus on. What we want to do is we want to feel the stretch right in the meat of the muscle here. So pretty much between the bottom of your glute to the back of your knee, right? We want to feel it right in here in the muscle. Hamstrings are surprisingly large muscles, and you should be able to feel a good stretch and pull throughout them. So if you're feeling it in the back of the knee, we want to adjust, and that's why some of these other ways to do these movements can be more helpful. So obviously that was the first one. Bend your knee slightly, hang down, no hold. Let's hold that for, you know, 15 seconds. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Obviously that's a bit of a rush 15, but it's okay. So the next version is actually, if you want to focus on one hamstring, you can actually cross your feet over the other and then do the same movement. So if I go this side here, I'm going to cross my right leg over my left, and I'm focusing on my left hamstring, and then we can go down. Alright, so some people like this one. I personally actually end up feeling this one in my calf, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's not really what the goal is for me today. Some other people's biomechanics, so their limb lengths and things like that, this might be a fantastic stretch for them, but for me personally, it is not. And always do both sides as long as you are able. Awesome. So now the first stretch that I will be using my yoga strap or my stretching strap for, I'm going to place it under my feet. So you can use anything for this. You could use a belt, a tie, a rope if you have it, or you can go pick up a yoga strap. These are usually like, you know, $10 at any fitness store, Winners, Walmart, all those kind of places sell these. So I stand on it under my feet, you know, and then what I can do is I slowly cinch down on the band to where I get a good stretch and I just hold it there. Once again, my back is running a bit, but if you try and straighten out, it does take some of the pressure off your hamstrings, which is not what we want. And honestly, research shows as long as you don't have a significant low back injury, herniation, things like that, doing some rounding is okay. But don't be doing it too much or too intensive. So that is the next one. Moving on from that, we can move on to the to the ground. So a lot of people have seen these. Have seen these ones before. As Coach Luna comes to say hello again. Watch out, Luna. So this one, as you see, my feet are on the ground here. I have both my feet out straight in front of each other, and now I'm going to reach for my toes. Now as you can see, I'm pretty far away from my toes here. It's a similar range to when I was standing up with my legs straight. It's the same kind of motion where I'm not able to get too far. Where if I was to bend my legs slightly, right, I can get much farther because you're engaging the hamstrings properly. Right? So from here to here, if I bring my knees up an inch, substantially farther, right? Substantially farther. So this can be another one where the band or the rope or whatever you're using to stretch can be helpful. You wrap it around both your feet and do the same thing where you can pull yourself forward slightly. And just kind of hold it there, just kind of hold it there. Some people for these, if you're really not that flexible and you have a hard time reaching forward, put your hands out behind you and you push forward that way. I often do this one when I'm doing this one. Just like that. Alright, so if you want to find a more intensive stretch, the next level of intensity, if you're able to do this one, great. If you have any kind of a back issue or a hamstring issue, don't be trying one like this, but the next level of intensity is actually coming up to a wall and doing a vertical sit against the wall. We'll try and get your tailbone as close to the wall as you can. And just go against the wall, and then you just kind of sit here. You sit here for as long as you feel that you need to. I do this one often. I get a great stretch through here. I feel it right in my hamstrings. It's an awesome movement. But you can only do this one if you're able and you have the mobility to. This one can be a little more intensive. Now as it gets more intensive, you just kind of shift your hips downwards, try to make the stretch more and more effective. Right, Coach Luna. All right, so we just have a couple more stretches. So the next two are probably my two personal favorites. I find these ones to be the most effective for me personally. So prior to tell, I'm now sitting on my box. So I'm slightly elevated from the ground. I'm going to take my one foot, place it on the ground. My other knee is going to be up to help support me here. So now, with this knee elevated, now I'm going to shift forward and I'm stretching out that right leg that is extended here. I'm slightly elevated and shifting forward here. When you're slightly elevated here, it enables you to actually stretch the hamstring, for me at least, a little bit better and a little bit safer. Just with kind of my hips are now higher than my ankles, obviously, because I'm sitting down on a box. Hold that. Well, 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Switch sides. Bring that knee up. Stretch your leg out. Nice and straight. You're going to stretch into it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Awesome. A great movement. So now we have two total left. First one we're going to do of these two is my absolute favorite hamstring stretch there is. I find this one to be the safest and the healthiest in my opinion for myself. And I think it is a great movement. It's a little bit difficult to do properly, to feel it properly. Once you get the hang of it, it's a great movement. So I'm just going to roll this up so you can see my hips a little better. So for this one, I'm standing and place one of my heels on my box. So I have my stepper here. Place one of my heels on the stepper. So it is not on the ground, it is on the stepper. It is now elevated. You could use something higher, but something like this high is fine for me. So one foot on the ground, one heel on the box. So my toes pointing up in the box. From here, you're not going to bend forward, though you can. Like you'll get a bit of a stretch there. But what I want is you think about taking your pelvis here. I'm putting my hands on my pelvis and I'm turning it forward. So what I'm kind of doing, I'm thinking about sticking my butt out and up. So I'm turning my whole pelvis forward. So when you think about taking your whole pelvis and turning it this way, so I'm going this way with my pelvis, trying to turn it. So you stick out your glutes and your butt and your hips. So for example, from here, I have no stretch. From here to here, I have a great stretch. And all I did was, I went from here with my pelvis, I shifted it 2 inches backwards. That's it. So why is that a stretch? Your hamstring muscles attach in the bottom of your pelvis here. If we're turning our pelvis outwards, where they attach into your pelvis is being stretched now. So it creates a good safe stretch on your hamstring here. And that's all it is. From here, let's mess up a little more. So from here, turn my pelvis down here. And I feel that really good right there. That's my favorite stretch right there. Great stretch. And some people, you know, they can tilt forward, but honestly, from me going here to here and here, I'm noticing no difference in intensity. Because right here, my pelvis is now locked. Me leaning my upper body forward, it's not moving my pelvis at all, so it isn't affecting my hamstring whatsoever. Whew, it's a good one for me. So now, other leg. So one leg on the ground, other leg on the box, just my heel, my toes pointing upwards. And same thing, we take our pelvis and roll it forward and stick our butt out and up. So from here, and then from here's no stretch to here is a stretch. And it's a great stretch. See, I feel this one in the complete meat of the hamstring. I don't feel it in the back of my knee at all. It's a fantastic movement. Let's hold this for 10 seconds. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's a fantastic hamstring stretch. That's one I try and get anyone to do if they have mobility issues, but they're able to stand on one leg, somewhat supported. It's a fantastic, generally very safe way to stretch by just rotating the pelvis outwards with an elevated leg. You can use a higher elevation, like a bench, and it'll still work. But realistically, something as short as this box that's roughly, I believe it's 11.5 inches tall, is about all you need. And I'm a tall person, so if I can use this box, most people, especially people shorter than me, should be able to use this box. And that's by far my personal favorite hamstring stretch. So I will show you guys one final bonus exercise that's a very intensive hamstring stretch. This can be a stretch. This can also be used to actually work the hamstrings for hypertrophy or strength or injury rehab as well. So this is an exercise I just want to stay off the hop. Is not for everyone. Can be very difficult. It can be very intensive. So I don't recommend someone doing this if you have any low back issues, if you have any mobility issues. This is something that I only recommend people if you have if your mobility is fantastic or at least decent, you have no injuries, and you're okay, and your balance is a sufficient level. If you're one of my patients, I would advise you whether or not I'm okay with using this move or not. If I don't mention it, it's because I would not be okay with using it. It's not a super common one, but if you do really want to work on your hamstrings, it's just a great movement as long as your mobility, your body, and your balance allows it. So for this one, you can use a dumbbell or a weight or something weighted. I'm just going to use a 25-pound plate for my example. So over here, I'm up on my elevated surface. So I'm up off the ground. I'm going to hold this out in front of me. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to slowly lower myself. And I'm allowing the weight to pull me downwards. So this is called, it's called a Jefferson Curl. Some people call it a Ukrainian deadlift, which it's very similar to, but the formal name is the Jefferson Curl. I'm not sure why. So you come in here, and you're letting the weight actually pull you downwards. And yes, this is rounding of the back, but something to be mindful of. Once again, why you shouldn't be doing it if you have any low back concerns. And you allow the weight just to, over time, help you sink further and further downwards. Further and further downwards. And over time, the hamstring should relax further and allow you to go further and further downwards. I personally made a mission of mine to become more flexible through my hamstrings over the past few months. I did a ton of these. I was using 60-pound dumbbells for these and holding them for up to 5 minutes at a time, which was brutal. But it's not a movement for everyone, as it almost falls on my toe. But my flexible hamstring saved me there. I wouldn't even recommend this for most people. But if you're adequately healthy, it's another option to consider trying. So those are all the hamstring stretches that I wanted to show today. I hope you found them helpful and insightful. Please like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you have any questions, feel free to post them down below. My name is Adrien. I'm the exercise specialist at the Leduc Beaumont Devon Primary Care Network. Thank you so much and have a great day.